Hello, all viewers. Doing a quick voice check. If you are able to listen clearly and see the video, just comment in the comment section that everything is clear, voice is clear, and then we are good to start in about next 5 minutes. Yes, Mayank, hi. I can see your message in the chat section. Hope all good at your in your area, considering the current situation. Yes, Mayank, I am good also. So all good at my end. Thanks for asking. So, all viewers, we will be starting our tournament in just about a minute, and I'm just waiting for just last minute is pending. Let me go into the full screen mode. Those who don't know how to go in the full screen mode while playing, just press F11 on your keyboard. That will convert your browser into full screen mode. And if you don't want full screen, you can press F11 again. So we have few new teams today. Today, Gujarat Lions are not playing, And we have a new team today, Golden Castle Chess Club. I think that's a new team. And we have Prayagraj Future GM's Chess Club. So it's going to start very soon. Good luck to all. Okay, so today WFM from Team Future has joined. We are going to see her games. Dimitar Doriana. So Team Future, I think, is from Sri Lanka. And yes, so we have Nikhil today playing from Khelo Chess India. Oh, I got into tournament. I did not realize that I had withdrawn from tournament and the game started. Let me just complete the game, guys, so that I can come back and show other games as well. So right now I'm playing against User Unstoppable. He is from Prayagraj Future GM's Chess Club, and I'm playing from Khelo Chess India, the team that I own right now, and also own the YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked the videos, you can definitely check them. There are a lot of videos, informative videos that you will really enjoy uh, watching. And the more thing important thing is that you will learn a lot there because I have focused on all the factors, all the technologies, all the applications that you can use to improve your game. For example, there is a blindfold chess app which you can use. Oh, I'm just in hurry actually. I should not have played this move. C5 was hanging, bishop takes c5 was possible. Okay, but if I play d4 now, pawn takes, yeah, d4 should be a safe move for me. So let me just try playing d4 and the pawns are not exchanged. f5 is now expected. Let me castle up. Now the thing is that this bishop h6 is not possible due to d4. Bishop is not on e3 now. It will go back to f2 and this I am safe with my bishop here. I have just made sure that this bishop is not in the diagonal to challenge this bishop on g7. Now this d4 pawn is hanging. I should capture with the knight. The reason why I should capture with the knight is you can see the d3 pawn here. D3 pawn is kind of a backward pawn, and if it is a backward pawn, you can just put your rook later on d8, queen on d7, and just try to put pressure on this d pawn. That should be my plan, but I also have this c5 pawn hanging here, so I have to take care of that also. So that's the game. That's the middle game strategies that you have to decide. I think this other knight can come to c6 now and again support a d4 square. But the b6 pawn, sorry, the c5 pawn is something that you have to take care about. Check. I should capture back with the queen. Knight goes there, and now I should put my rook on d8. Just try to attack this d3 pawn right away. I have c4 move, but that will just allow white to play rook to d1, and if I capture, the knight can capture back. So I should actually avoid it and try to play my knight to c6. Try to play knight b4 and attack this d3 pawn again. This rook is right now not in the best of its position. Mm, offering for the queen, but I should not exchange. That's what I believe. But if I exchange, this pawn will come to c3 and then d4 break could be possible in the game. So let me just rook c1 is going to be played to attack this pawn. So I have to play quick now because I will be under time pressure. So let me just attack the queen. I'm not very much happy to play this move because c5 pawn will be hanging then. I will have to capture by the pawn if the queen captures, yeah. Else I'll lose my c5 pawn here. Now the rook c1 is expected, right? bishop to b7, and now this knight can go to e7 and then to f5 and e3. Rook c6, knight f6 is a very dangerous threat here, and if rook comes to c1 and this rook can come to c8, challenge this rook, and then there will be a knight f6 check. If king moves to g7, then there is a rook to g8, kind of mating net is created there. So I have to be sure that I make some good moves now. Just play this move so that it can come back to d5. Knight d6, rook d7, and then probably, yep, let me just play the rook here. Rook takes, and I think knight takes is going to be played here. So let me just play knight d1, try to attack the b2 pawn, and then knight c3, try to attack this backward a2 pawn. Knight f7 is played, that was expected. So let me just support this a5 pawn now. Knight here, this is hanging, e6 is hanging. Let me just capture the pawn first. Bring back the knight. King to h8 is forced. I'm kind of in a dangerous situation now because I don't think the win is easier. I have to go for some kind of risk here. I have to make sure that this pawn is getting pushed very quickly. So that allows me to capture the pawn. Rook check, king moves, rook takes pawn, rook takes knight, this check, and now I'll play rook f2, or is rook f2 possible? No, that is not possible. Okay, I missed it. I missed this one completely, guys. Check, okay. Let's go back. Let me pause first so that I can show other games. So that was not the best of the games from my side. But yeah, it was an okay game. Let's just check who all are playing today. So Team Future, I am just looking for the WFM which is who's playing now. Okay, so let's check. I think yesterday also she joined, but she didn't play a game. Let's just check some other game. Team Future, we have Nikhil and Luisi. Okay, so Nikhil is from Khelo Chess India team with a rating of 2225, an amazing rating, and we have Luisi 2159 from Team Future. So this is a rook ending right now. Let's quickly check what happened in the opening. So e4 was played, e4 g6, d4, bishop g7. So this is going to be a modern defense. Oh, it's a d5. Interesting. Pawn takes d5, knight f6. So d5 is a, it's not so commonly played here, but the idea over here is to, if white plays knight takes d5, then I think c6 is playable. C6 knight comes back, and then bishop can capture the d4 pawn, or the queen can capture the d4 pawn. That is the idea probably. So pawn takes is a safer option. That's what white played here. Pawn takes, knight came on f6, attacking this d5 square twice. So bishop b5 check, knight d7, knight f3, castles, knight b6, and now this d5 pawn will be lost. Rook e1, knight takes d5, queen to d3, bishop to f5. So now look at the black pieces. They are beautifully placed. Okay, white is also able to develop his pieces, but they are not in the attacking position right now. But if you look at this bishop, it's attacking the beautiful diagonal here. This bishop is actually the dragon bishop, a dragon-like bishop right here, and the knight is also there on d5. If knight takes, then the other knight can jump to d5 and have a very good position in the game. So queen d2 was queen d2. Again, I am not happy with this move. This it's just blocking away its own bishop. So pawn to c6, bishop to d3, bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and rook to e8. Knight takes d5 now, knight takes d5, and pawn to c4. So that will leave actually this weak pawn on the board. Of course, bishop e3 can be played to save this pawn, but there is no other pawn which can defend this d4 pawn on the board right now. So we have knight to f6, bishop g5, queen to b6. Now the b2 pawn is hanging and the d4 pawn is attacked once, so that this rook can now come to d8 and attack this d pawn. So white plays rook e2 supporting the b2 pawn with this rook. Then we have rook to d8, rook to e1, pawn to e6. So this pawn was attacked twice by the two rooks to save the pawn. Black played e6. Now this knight is pinned. You can see this knight is pinned. So probably there should be some move which will help white to put more pressure on this knight. But let's check what how white continued the game. So queen a3 was played. Queen a3 again is a different kind of move. It's not expected. Pawn h6, bishop e3, and knight g4. Pawn to c5, queen to c7. So white is trying to lock away all the pawns on the queen side. But look at this bishop now. This bishop is attacking the d4. Rook is attacking d4. This knight is hanging, of course, but I think this knight will help to actually. You can just play e5 now. E5, but h3 will be played if e5, and this knight has to move, and then e5 can go away for free. So there are a lot of tactics going on right now. Also, there is one small threat of this queen takes h2 on the board. Okay, so that bishop takes d4 is now possible. Bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, knight takes d4 cannot be played because of queen h2 check and mate. Okay, so this is something that you have to take care of. So g3 is played to stop that mate right away. Pawn to a6, bishop to f4, queen to d7, and bishop d6. Bishop is now beautifully placed in one of the central squares, and it will be difficult now for black to attack in this pawn in this file unless he gets rid of this bishop. So he plays queen to c8, knight to e5, another piece coming into the game. Knight takes e5, d takes e5. Look at this bishop. It is like a spearhead round. It's just spearhead just piercing everything on the black's black's camp. So bishop f8 probably should be played to challenge that bishop. Rook d7, rook to d1, bishop to f8 is now played. Queen to f3, bishop takes d6, f takes d6, and now queen to e8, d8. Okay, now this is going to be a difficult task for black to handle to stop this pawn from the long run, and white has a lot of space here. Rook d4 can be played, rook can go to h4, this rook can come again, come to g4, queen can go to f4. There are a lot of options with white, but not much options with the black, and this is called a space advantage. This is space advantage is something that you should be aware of when you are playing, that you should have a good space to maneuver your pieces. If you are cramping up for the piece like a space like this rook, this is a bad position. You should avoid all this stuff, and you should just try to make sure that you have good space on the board. So queen f4 was played, attacking the h6 pawn which is hanging. Then king g7 to save it, rook to e1, queen to f6, queen takes f6. Exchanges of the queens have happened. Pawn to b6, pawn to b4, pawn to a5, pawn to a3, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes, and rook to a8. So black rook is now active here, and white has to make sure that these pawns are kept safe, because this is the pawn chain which will help white to win in the long run. So king to f2, rook to e3, rook to e3, rook check, rook to e2, and rook to a1. Pawn to h4, rook to b1, rook to e4 is forced to save this pawn, and then the rook to c1. Idea is now to capture the pawn, and if pawn captures, then the rook can capture the pawn, attacking the pawn twice. Rook to e5, pawn takes, and rook to c4, pawn to f4, rook to c3. And now this rook is swinged to the open file, so that this rook can now go to b6 and attack this pawn on c6. Okay, so rook to a7, pawn to h5, rook to a3. Now this is a difficult threat to stop. Okay, black has got some advantage here. So pawn push, rook moves to d3, rook to d. I think this is a bit of hurry actually. So black has won this game. Amazing, black has won. But let's just check what happened in the game. After all these exchanges, we were at this position and pawns were exchanged. So, yep, this is the position that we were in. So, pawn push, I think, is premature. This is something that white shouldn't do right away. Probably you can just play pawn takes pawn first. Pawn takes pawn, and then rook to e2, threatening to capture this e6 pawn. And then once this pawn is captured, then this king cannot come to the e file to defend this pawn on the d file. So this pawn can be pushed later on very well. Even rook to d2 can be played here. Rook d2 was a good move. We will get some checks, but king has this shelter of hiding behind the rooks here. Okay, so rook a3, then pawn d7. It was played in a bit of hurry. So then rook to d3, rook to b7, king to e7, and pawn takes, and pawn to f5. I don't think this is going to help white to win here. Okay, pawn to f5, pawn takes, rook to. So it's just giving away a free pawn with nothing to be achieved here. Probably white should just bring back his rook, hoping that this rook goes away and this rook can then be put in the d file to support the queen. Okay, so pawn to f5, g takes f5. I think white lost here because of these moves, giving away too many pawns and creating these weaknesses. And I think that's time pressure because of which this Nikhil has made a lot of blunders. So rook takes, rook king takes, rook check, king moves, rook to d6, rook to a6, supporting the c6 pawn. Then we have king to g2, king to f6, king to h3, king to rook to a3. Now the threat is pawn to f4. So king h4, rook check, king goes back, rook again attacks the pawn, king to g2, and rook back to a6, supporting the c6 pawn. King to g1, king to e5, king to g2, pawn to h5, king to h2, rook to a2, king to h3, rook to a3. And this is, I think, just both players were trying to gain some time here and nothing to be improved about. Just trying to make sure that you are safe, you have good time in your hands, and then you try for the win. Okay, so white has given away another pawn. So white got these two pawns here, but it's a long battle. It's not going to be easy for black to win this one. King to g2, king to e5, king to f2, rook to a4, king to e2, rook a3. Just making sure that you are attacking the pawn and also locking the king behind this third rank. We also call it as creating a wall wherein you don't allow this white king or opponent's king to cross over. So you have to create this wall. Pawn to g4, king to f4, pawn takes. So still actually this I think pawn push here was better. No, pawn pushes was not allowed because this rook pawn is pinned. Sorry for that. So king was played to f4, pawn takes, and rook to h8. Rook to rook h8 actually is not required here. Rook h8. Okay, but I think this is going into the Philidor's position. We have three major positions from the rook and pawn endings that you have to study. Lucena position, Philidor position, and Vancouver position. So Philidor is something that is appearing on the board right now, which is a drawn position. So white should have actually able. This is a bad strategy, guys. This rook king has to sit on the f1 square, okay, to block this pawn. If king goes away here somewhere, then it will be easy for black to just push this pawn very easily. Okay, so king has to sit here and this rook has to come to b file and give checks from these two squares and not allow king to progress. Okay, so sometime black will eventually take his king to g4 and push the pawn to stop the attack. That is okay. That is absolutely fine. You have to just make sure that this king doesn't reach 6th rank. Your rook has to be there on the 6th rank or 3rd rank in this case, so that this king is not able to come here and give you the mating threats. Okay, so the rook actually this check king to d3 is not the right move. I think you should have played king to. He should have played king to uh, e8 probably. So king, if king e3, then rook e1 e8 check was possible. King moves, and then we can go to uh, b1 b8 square to give the check from the third rank. Okay, so king d3, king f3, king d4, rook check, king to e5, pawn to f5, and rook to h4, attacking the pawn twice. And actually, Blahite could have captured this pawn. Okay, but he wanted to capture with the check. Okay, so this is a simple draw actually. A simple draw. Oh, but he gave away the rook here in time pressure. White gave away the rook in time pressure, and that's why he lost. So let's go back to tournament and check the next game. We have next game between. Let's check this one. This is a game between Pasindu 2005 from Sri Lankan team. Okay, he is from the RCCA Richmond College Chess Association, and we have Golden Castle Chess Club. This is a new team. Vega is from that team. So let's check what happened in the opening. D4 was played, knight f6, c4, c5. This is a modern Benoni, guys. So this is called as modern Benoni. So if you're looking for a solid opening against d4, you can use this opening. This is called as modern Benoni. You can Google out. There are a lot of videos on YouTube explaining how to play modern Benoni defense from black side against d4. Pawn to d5, pawn to b5. That's a nice move, guys. This is again an aggressive move. This is called as Benko Gambit. Okay, so when the white plays d5, you can play b5 pawn, bishop pawn takes pawn, then you can play e6, pawn takes pawn, and bishop takes a6, and this gives black tremendous open files, these two open files, and with the bishop on g7 attacking this b2 and a1 squares, it becomes a very dynamic game and good one for black. So you can learn this gambit from black side. It's a very nice gambit, very attacking game. So b5 was answered by pawn takes and pawn to a6 and b6. So this is a kind of declining one of the gambits. So by declining to capture the pawn on a6, you push the pawn, queen b6 is available, or also black can play pawn d6, knight d7, knight takes b6. So queen takes b6 was played, knight c3, pawn to g6, queen to b3, queen c7, e4 d6. So d6 is also an important move just to make sure that e5 early e5 is not possible. Right now the queen is attacking this e5 square, so not to worry about e5. But in case e5 is possible, then this knight is actually not very happy here to go to h5, g4, or any other squares. Also, it allows white to capture this d6 pawn and giving this open file for white to attack. So pawn to f4, bishop g7, knight f3, knight d7, bishop e3, pawn to a5. Now the idea is that to put this bishop on a6 and exchange with this light squared bishop. So that is generally played in this kind of opening. Knight to b5, queen b6, bishop to d3, bishop to a6, pawn to a4. So white is trying to avoid this bishop exchange by putting the knight on b5 and supporting with the pawn. Later on he's going to push this e5 pawn, or even he can play h4, h5, just trying to get this castle open on the king side. Okay, so knight g4 attacking the dark squared bishop. Then we have bishop to d2, pawn to c4, a sacrifice by black. The reason is that we have this beautiful move of knight queen f2 check. Knight is supporting the f2, so black is sacrificed this pawn, a very nice move. And then bishop has captured the pawn, allowing, but why not queen f2 check here? Queen f2 check was possible, queen f2, king to d1 was possible. Okay, so let's just check what. Okay, yeah, the reason is that this knight is after queen f2 check. If the queen has to stay here, it has to take care of this knight c7 check. Okay, which is a dangerous threat right now. So that's the reason why black is just trying to get rid of this knight first, and then he'll try to give the f2 check. Yes, queen f2, king to d1, queen to g2. Now the knight and rook both are hanging. Now knight is not hanging; it is being supported by the queen, but the rook is hanging over here. So rook to g1, knight to e3 check, and now bishop e3. If the bishop e3 is played, then queen takes f3 is possible. So queen takes e3 was played, Queen h3, I think that was a waste of a piece here. Knight e3 check. It's not achieving anything right now, just giving away the piece right away. And then queen to d7. Okay, black has resigned, but just will go and check the game, what happened in the game. So queen check, king d1, queen to g2, rook to g1, knight to e3. Knight b2 check is actually a waste of time. It should not be played. So queen takes, and then queen h3, rook to c1, castles, rook g3. And now look at the queen. This queen is in a miserable position actually. This queen has to go back somewhere to h5, but then d7 piece is hanging. The queen was supporting the d7 knight, which allowed black to castle. But now to save the queen, queen has to move, and then bishop can capture the knight for free. So a very good move, this rook g3 by white. Make sure that this queen is deflected from this d7 square. It goes back to somewhere which is where it is not comfortable, and he can capture the knight thereafter. So queen goes to h5, bishop takes d7, bishop takes b2, rook to c2, rook to b8, bishop to b5, back again. This is also an important move, guys. Just making sure that this rook is not getting activated in this b file now. Bishop f6, pawn to e5, pawn takes, and bishop to h4, rook to h3. Now this bishop is hanging. Knight is attacking the bishop as well as the rook is attacking the bishop, and bishop is pinned. So g5 and queen g5 is clearly now winning for white, because bishop g5 is kind of forced. If not bishop g5, then white is going to capture the queen. And if queen takes g5, if queen takes g5, then knight takes g5 can be played. Bishop takes g5, rook g3, pinning the bishop. And if bishop is supported, then h4 can be played to capture the bishop for free. So black has almost lost three pieces, three extra pieces, and white would be left with this bishop pair plus this knight versus this two rooks, and white will be having two rooks also. So it's a completely winning position for white now. So let's go back and try to check another game here. So we have another game between okay, let's check this one. Mr. Green is from Khelo Chess India, and let's check what happened in the opening. D4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, pawn to e3, pawn to e6, bishop d3, bishop d6. This is a symmetrical opening, guys. c5. Symmetrical opening is the opening wherein you have the same setup from both the sides, but right now the bishop is on b7, b2, so it would give a different positions. It won't be a symmetrical position. Knight to c6, queen e2, knight to b4, and I think black can now exchange the bishop on d3. Once this bishop is gone, actually black is very comfortable because there are no attacking pieces left on the board. Okay, so pawn to b6, pawn to f4, bishop a6. Nice move attacking this d3 pawn. Then we have rook to f3, rook to c8, knight to f1, rook to c7, rook h3, queen to c8. Now the threat is to play rook to c2, attack the queen, attack the bishop, and gulp this bishop for free. So that's the threat right now. Knight e3, controlling the c2 square, not allowing this rook to enter the c file, and then bishop to b4, g4. That's a nice idea because now g5 is inevitable. This knight moves, and then we have a move like queen h5. Uh, yeah, queen h5 attacking the h7. Bishop d3 is not possible because this knight is supporting the pawn. So probably f6 will have to be played first to destroy this knight, to not destroy but to deflect this knight, and then bishop d3 will be possible for bishops. And after capturing d3, it will actually support the h7 square back, so that this mate is not possible. So that could be one of the continuations that both sides can have. Bishop c3, bishop takes c3, rook takes c3, pawn to g5, knight. Okay, check first. So rook takes, queen takes, and king to g2. Knight to d e4. Nice move because now this bishop has pinned the pawn and this queen is kind of hanging. Rook takes h7. Sham sacrifice here. King takes h7. Queen h5. King goes to g8. Queen f7. King h7. Queen g6. King g8. Queen takes e8. King h7 and g6. And this is actually a losing position. It's a check and mate. a beautiful combination at the end by white here. Let's go back few moves. Black was completely dominating until this move, knight e4. So this g4, g5 gambling actually paid off for white, and white was able to win this one. So look at this move. This is a beautiful move, guys. Knight e4. Black played knight e4, and then it allowed black to play this rook takes h7. Okay, so rook takes h7 was easily winning. I am just wondering if white had some, black had some other move after rook takes h7. Is there any other move that black can play here to attack actually? So bishop d3 is not again possible. Bishop d3 can be played here, or bishop d3, knight d3. No, not exactly. So queen d2 is possible. Queen d2 pinning the queen here and forcing the queen exchange. So if queen takes, knight takes can be played. And then probably this rook is hanging, so white has to bring back the rook. So these two knights versus the this knight and bishop versus this rook, I think black would be better in this case. Slightly better, not a huge advantage, because the queens will be off the board. So queen d2, queen takes d2, knight takes d2 can be that will allow black to exchange the queens and stop this check and mate. So you have to find for such defenses, guys, wherein it will help you to just exchange off opponents attacking pieces and get you into a comfortable position. I can just check few comments in the comment section. Chess trick and opening says nice. Thank you, chess trick and the openings. And we have Shravan Parte. Hi Shravan. Hope you are doing good. Good that you are watching today. So rook takes h7, and then the checkmate was followed by after king takes h7, queen h5 check, king to g8, queen f7, king h7, queen g6 check, king g8, queen takes rook, king to h7, pawn g6 check, king h6, and this is a beautiful check and mate, guys. You should check this combination again. It's a very nice combination. Let's go back and check the next game. So again, this WFM has joined, but she is not playing today. So let's not check her games. Let's check the next game between. There's a CM. Oh, that's not nice. Just candidate master, if I'm not wrong. This title, yeah, candidate master. So candidate master, the rating is 2128, and it's playing from. He's playing from Prayagraj Future GM's chess tournament, and he's playing against Luis 1001 2153 from Team Future, and Team Future is from Sri Lanka, guys. So let's check what happened in the opening, what we can learn in this game. So knight f3 was played, knight f3, then d5, c4. Okay, so I think Benoni is something that I explained, modern Benoni, and this is kind of a reverse modern Benoni. So if black plays pawn to d4, then b5 can be played just to make sure that you can go into the Benko like setup. So e6 was played, g3, knight f6, knight bishop g2, castles, and b3, bishop b7. Oh, sorry, b3, b6, and then bishop b2, bishop to b7, pawn takes, and pawn to d3. I think black would be white would get a good advantage after this. Not the best, but a good slightly advantage for attacking this c pawn. c5 is going to be played in the game. But let's see, yeah, c5 was played right away. Knight d2, knight c6, knight to e5, challenging the knight on c6, exchanging right away. Knight takes, and bishop d6. So now this bishop should be retracted. Oh, so bishop was exchanged here. But if you look at the position, this is the only piece which is attacking towards the king side. So they should have brought back. Pawn d4 is possible after that, but e3 I think can be used to get a break on the d4 square. But okay, bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, queen to c2, rook to e8, attacking this e2 pawn. This is a backward pawn now. So knight f3, developing the knight as well as supporting the e2 pawn. And then we have rook to c8, rook to e1, pawn to b5, pawn to a4, pawn to a6, pawn takes, and rook to a5, attacking the b5 pawn. You can also play rook a7, probably attacking the bishop. Both the options are there. So next, black played queen to b6, attacking this rook. Rook to a1, and now c4. c4 is kind of threatening this queen over here, so exchange is possible. Also, there is one line opening here which queen can attack f2, knight g4 can be played. Knight g4 can be played later on to attack this f2 pawn twice if possible. So that's all happening right now on the board. After pawn to c4, pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, rook takes, attacking the queen. And now black has this passer on the queen side. If black is able to hold on to this until the end game with the kings on the board, black will win this one. But white has to make sure that these pawns are safe, and white is able to attack this b5 pawn. That will help white to win. So queen to b2 now. Knight to g4, as I mentioned before, knight g4, and this queen is attacking the f2 pawn. So white has to be careful here. Pawn to e3. Right? Is rook takes e3 possible here? Rook takes e3, f takes e3, queen takes e3 check. King to f1 is possible. Yeah, king to f1 is possible, and white could be safe here. So b4 was played. So black is just trying to make sure it gets this pawn to the queening square. So knight d4 is supporting this b3 and b5 square, also offering this exchange of the bishop. Bishop takes, king takes, and queen b7. King moves and pawn to h5. This is another very good tactic to, whenever you are in good position, you don't have any weaknesses, just try to push the h pawn, try to get it to h3, and then you will have this mating threats on g2. Okay, so queen e2. Now h4 is not possible because of h4. Queen can capture the knight on g4, as well as queen is threatening to capture the rook on c4. So rook to c8, then queen f3, offering the queen exchange. Queen takes, knight takes, rook to c2, rook f1 to save the f2 pawn, and now g6, supporting the h5 pawn because this rook was attacking the h5 pawn here. So next we have knight to d4, attacking the c2 rook, and pawn to h3, knight e5, rook to b5. Knight is attacking, supporting this pawn now. King to g2, rook moves to a. Okay, black has won this one, but let's go few moves back. Yeah, so we were here. Rook to a2 was the last move. Yeah, rook to a2 was played. King f3, king to g7, rook to b7, king to f6, rook check, king g7 back, and rook to c6 now. So rook b6 was played here, but I can see there is an option of playing knight e6 also, as this pawn is pinned by a rook. If knight e6 is played and this knight is brought to f4, then there is a chance of exchanging this knight very soon, so that if this knight is exchanged, there won't be any attack on f2 square, and then this rook can be switched to the b file to attack this b pawn. So for example, knight check, king to f6, knight to f4, knight takes, and then probably pawn takes, and then if pawn push, then rook can come to b1 and attack this pawn twice. So that should have been played here. I feel so. So rook b6 was played, not knight e6 check. Rook to c4, rook to b7 again, not making any progress here. Rook to c3 again, rook to b6, just wasting some moves. And finally, black has changed the moves. He has given the knight e5 check, king moves, knight goes back to d3, pawn f4, knight to c5 check, and this is where white has resigned because of this rook is hanging a beautiful fork out there. So white has actually missed a trick. Let's go back few moves. This is where actually he wasted a lot of moves. So yeah, rook, after rook c3, this check should have been given, and then knight f4 could have been played. Okay, that's my view. So let's go back to tournament now and check the next game. There are no questions as of now. So all the viewers out there, if you have any questions on chess, anything that you want to know, anything you want to learn, anything that you saw that you were not aware of, you can ask your questions. I would be happy to answer all of your questions in the comment section. So let's go back to tournament right now. Prayagraj Future GM's Chess Club is leading with 58 points. Team Future on 51. RCCA on 48. Chess Blasters on 42. Khelo Chess India on 40. Golden Castle Chess Club on 34, Jamshedpur Team A on 27, Kolkata Dragons on 20, and Race on 19. So we can see that Kolkata Dragons, one of the players is missing. So, Arjun, if you are listening to the commentary, just try to make sure that you get one more player from tomorrow so that we have full house from Kolkata Dragons. And let's just check the next game, guys. We have checked on already one game of Pasindu. We have checked this Garv's game. We have checked. Let's check this game. Debanjan Sasmal and Tomigan. So Debanjan Sasmal is Jamshedpur Team A's team leader, and Tommy Gunn is from Team Future, that is a Sri Lankan team. C4 was played here by Devanjan. The C4 E5, knight C3, knight F6, pawn to G3, bishop C5, bishop G2, pawn to D6, pawn to E3, castles, pawn to D4, pawn takes, bishop to B4, knight to E2, and pawn to D5. So this position is a pretty dicey position wherein white would be left with this IQP on the d4 square, because if this pawn is exchanged, then no one will be supporting, no pawns will be supporting this d4 pawn. It is called as an isolated queen pawn, or in the short form or in the abbreviation we call it as uh, IQP, isolated queen pawn. Meanwhile, I can see a comment from Mr. Ferris. Good explanation. Thank you, Mr. Ferris. If you want to ask any questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions. So after that, we have pawn takes, knight takes castles, pawn to c6, knight to d5, pawn takes d5, and queen to b3, attacking this pawn twice with the queen and the bishop, also attacking this b4 bishop. So how is black going to save all of these? He plays knight c6 and gives away the d5 pawn. Queen takes d5, bishop e6, and now queen to b5. This b7 pawn is hanging. Knight takes d5, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and we have bishop to e3. Now there are a lot of things happening on the board. First is this b7 pawn is hanging. It's been attacked by queen with this bishop. This bishop is b4 is attacked by the queen. This queen is supporting this bishop, so the queen has to go to d6 or somewhere from where it can support the bishop, and then probably white can capture the b7 pawn. But then we have rook b8 pinning the bishop and attacking the queen, and then if queen takes is played, then rook b8 and rook takes b2 is possible. So queen to c5 was played, queen b7, rook to c8, queen to a7, bishop to d5, just trying to make sure to exchange the bishop. But if you look here, these two are now connected passers, and if white is able to exchange off his pieces, if white is able to exchange off his queen, his bishops, his rooks, then this two pawns are going to be the winning factor for white. So whenever you are having these such pawns outside passes, you remember, you just try to exchange off the attacking pieces so that there is no mate threat on your king. Just try to exchange off the queens by playing the move like queen to d4 and queen takes queen as soon as possible, and then try to challenge the rooks by coming in the open file and get into the ending. Just try to push these pawns and get a new queen. So rook c8 was played here. Do we have queen takes c8 for here? Queen takes c1. Rook c1 was played. Rook takes queen takes. No, it's not possible. So queen to b5, rook takes, and bishop takes d5. Queen takes d5, queen to d4, and queen to b5. So black is trying, making sure that he doesn't exchange off his queens. I think here there was an option to play bishop d2 and then play bishop to c3 so that there is a mating threat on g7. If bishop d2, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, white is happy because there is one piece less on the board. If bishop d2, bishop is not exchanged, bishop is put on c5. That is an interesting option. Then queen can come to g4, attack this rook, and with the time, this bishop can go to c3 and help this queen deliver a mate on g7 as early as possible. So bishop d2 was a good option there, but a3 was played in the game. Bishop c5, queen to f4, bishop takes e3, queen takes e3, and now b2 pawn is hanging. This is not how you should play. You should have kept both the pawns safe there, white. You should not give away your pawns in such a way. So there was a mating threat now with rook e1. With beginners are very happy if they get this mate on back rank mate on the opponent. So g6 was played to save it. Pawn to a4, rook to a8, queen to e4, rook to a5, and we have now this check. So I'm just wondering, after king takes g7, There's no check which will allow this exchange because of this rook is attacking the e5 square. So king g7, queen to e3, queen to e3. Why was this allowed? Rook takes e4. Is there a threat? Something there? Rook takes a4 was allowed, but I'm not sure why it was allowed. I cannot find any tactic right away. So queen b4, queen to e8, queen takes a4, rook to e7, queen takes, rook takes, and king to f6. And suddenly black is seem to be having a better, not better, but slight advantage because his king is ahead in the development as compared to this king by one move. But I don't think this is going to result in any. This is going to have any results. It's going to end up in a draw, unless one of the players makes a blunder here. Yeah, so that will leave white with an outside passer. So it's white might have this outside passer here. Uh, King rook to a6, rook to f2 check, and okay. So I've seen your question, Mr. Ferris. I'll answer that. Just give me some time. So king to g7, rook to g, king to g3, rook to f4, f3, rook to a4, pawn to g5, rook to b5. I think this is going to be a draw unless someone blunders very bad. Let us just quickly go to the fast forward the game so that we get to the climax. Yeah, this is a blunder. This is a blunder I think one is always waiting for. So blunder is this pawn push now, h5, rook check, and black will be pawn up now. So this is a blunder. As I said before, someone has to blunder to lose here, and white has raised his hand that I will be blundering here, and he has created a blunder and giving away the extra pawn on h5. Now it will be an interesting battle because black will try to win and white will try to draw from his point of view. So now g4 pawn, g5 is gone as well, and this is completely winning. Not winning, but still there is a lot long fought battle in front of us. Long the battle that has to be fought for a long time with getting these two pawns to the over the line. Okay, I think this rook g4 is was a good move. This king is locked actually. Look at this wall. Let this king be locked. Bring your king up here, and just try to push the pawns then. Oh, that would have been nice. So, Mr. Ferris, your when the bishop is on f4, it is controlling the b8 square. Okay. So, from the castling point of view, the rules of castling are that king should not pass from the attack square, but a rook can pass from the attack square. So, on the b8 square, there is an attack of bishop. So, in that case, rook can cross the b8 square, but king cannot cross. Okay. So, if the bishop was controlling the d8 square from g5. Okay, in that case, you are not allowed to castle because king will be passing from the checking square. So this is how the king castle rules are. So if the bishop is on f4, you are allowed to castle because it is not attacking any square from which the king has to pass. Okay, so just keep that in mind. King should not pass from any attacking squares. Then you are allowed to castle. That's your query is, Mr. Ferris. So this is another battle which is going on, and this should be a draw. Right now, I think the time has passed because this just one move is remaining, and there is no way that this can be stopped. Although there is one way to play this check, king takes, and you can play king h2. If queen pawn push and queens happen, then it is going to be a stalemate. Okay, or just play king h2 here. As soon as this black queens, you can play this rook here. But yeah, the rook can played here. If king moves, then you can just try giving checks from the nearest square possible to the king, so that if king captures, it is going to be a stalemate for uh, white king. That is one technique that you can learn here. Put your king into the stalemate. Okay, let's go back to tournament. So last 11 minutes remaining, guys, and who will win today's Khelo Chess India 42nd team battle? Prayagraj, a new team. It's leading right now with 74 points. Then we have Team Future on 60, Chess Blasters on 57, RCCA Richmond College Chess Association on 51, and then we have Khelo Chess India on 48, Jamshedpur Team A on 47, Golden Castle Chess Club on 34, Kolkata Dragons on 28, Rays on 24. So all teams have scored well, but there are differences on in the top positions as well. So we can see there is a close call for the second position between Team Future and Chess Blasters, and then we have Chess Blasters and Richmond College. So all these teams are close, 56, 57, and 60. Anything can happen in last 10 minutes. So let's go and check the next game. So meanwhile, just a question to Mr. Ferris. I hope you have answered your query. If you haven't followed, just let me know again. I can explain you again. I can explain you in number of times. Okay, so let's check this game. This game is between unusual, a very unusual ID. The rating is 2133 from Prayagraj Future Chess GM's Chess Club and Super Bohemo Chess Blasters. So let's just check what happened in the opening, guys. D4 E5. This is always a very good battle. This is called as England Gambit. I have explained one of the England Gambit games yesterday also in our live broadcast. This is a very dynamic game, and I think Super Bohemo is playing this gambit very well. So you can follow Super Bohemo if you like to play gambits, if you like to do something crazy in the opening like this England gambit. Okay, so knight f3, knight to c6, pawn to e3, queen to yeah. So now bishop is going to come to g4 and black is going to castle here, long castle, so that this rook comes and attack this poor queen. So c3 has to be played and queen to a4 has to be played sometime soon. So bishop e2, bishop g4, castles, castles, pawn, bishop to d3, pawn to h5. Attack straight away from black. Knight to d2, pawn to h4, pawn to h3, bishop goes to h5. Uh, okay. So I was just thinking about knight takes f3 here, but that's not working because of this knight can hop on to the f3 square and then again you have to move the bishop. So bishop h5, pawn to b3, king to b8, bishop to b2, knight to f6, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5. We don't have knight takes e5 available right now because this bishop is pinning the knight. So bishop goes back to d6, pawn to e4, rook to e8, rook to e1, supporting the e4 pawn as many times as possible. And then we have the spinning move. I think this is something that will help black to get a better position. So it was a draw eventually, but let's check what happened in the game. So this was a position. Bishop b4 was the last move we played. Then pawn to e5, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, and knight to d5. We have now knight to c3 coming up very soon, attacking this rook. If rook goes to c1, then we have bishop to a3. If rook goes to a1, then bishop can walk to b2, and black is going to get some exchange here. Okay, so rook to e4 was played, knight c3, forking the two rooks over here. But yeah, this rook cannot capture bishop because of this queen. So rook f1 was played, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, and queen takes e5. Rook to b1. Rook to b1, I think, is not of much use right now. Rook to b1, I cannot find any purpose behind rook to b1. Okay, probably just stopping this queen from coming to b2 and nothing else. Okay, so bishop d6 was played, threatening a mate on h2 now. Not a mate, but a good attacking position can be achieved. So pawn to g3, pawn takes, and bishop b5, bishop c5 check, king to g2, bishop to e7, rook to e8, pawn to f5, knight c5, queen c5 was possible here, right? The knight was free. Am I correct? Am I missing something here? Yeah, queen c5 I think was free here. Queen takes c5 is winning for black. I think black missed it. Yeah, black missed it completely. Knight is free here. Okay, so queen to d5, queen takes d5, rook takes d5, knight to e6 check, bishop to b4. Now bishop b4 has done two things. First of all, it has gained one tempo of attacking the rook, and it has also got rid of this pin, which was annoying on this e file for black. So rook e2, pawn to g6, knight to f4, attacking the rook as well as the pawn at the same time. And the threat of this rook takes e8 is also there on the board. So rook takes e2, knight takes e2, and rook to e5, king to f3, king to f c8, king to f4. Okay, Bishop to d6, king to g5, attacking the g6 pawn. King takes g6, and bishop takes g3. King takes f5, pawn h4. And I think there could have been some trap here, trap like probably king g6 should have been played. If rook takes h3 is captured, then bishop f5 is a beautiful attack, double attack on rook and this king. So I think king g6 should have been played here. And even king g6 will help you to play knight f4 later on, putting the knight d5 on e7 and otherwise. So king g4 was played, which was not necessary absolutely. Bishop to g, sorry, d8, pawn to h4, and this is where the draw was accepted. I am not sure why the draw was accepted, because probably the white is under time pressure. White must have offered a draw and black must have agreed to draw. So still it was a double-edged battle. Either sides could have won, but I think it was an agreed draw between the two players. So let's go back to tournament now. Last 5 minutes remaining, and you can see the Pragyaraj team on top with 87 points. None of the teams can get it right now. RCC and Team Future battling it out for second position. And Khelo Chess India have sneaked past few teams from the bottom, from the fifth, sixth, and seventh positions, and getting to the third position very soon. Just 9 points, but the time is what will not be in their favor. So let's check one of the games. We have Adipa from RCC, and we have Dhanu from Team Future. Let's check what happened in the opening. So d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop to b4. This is a Nimzo Indian defense, another very solid opening. Knight f3, castles, e3, knight to e4, queen c2, pawn to d5, bishop to d3, pawn to f5. This is how you can put a very good center, guys. This knight to on e4. I think soon you will have knight d2 and pawn f3 can come. So castles, knight d7, pawn takes, bishop takes c3, pawn takes e6, knight f6. So what happened here? Okay, let's just check. So pawn takes was played, is e6 pawn is hanging. If pawn takes d5, then knight takes d5 is possible. So probably here c6, for castle, c6 should have been played first to just make sure that this pawn structure is intact. Okay, but that's what black ignored, and probably black is going to pay some price for that. So pawn takes, bishop takes c3, pawn takes e6, knight f6, and pawn takes c3, bishop takes e6, pawn to c4. Now look at the center, guys. This is with white's control, and d4 is also playable, and bishop b2 will be followed by d4, because then this bishop will be very effective in this diagonal. So pawn to c6, bishop to b2, pawn to g5, knight to e5, queen e8, f3. f3 is something that you see very common when this knight sits on e4. So knight goes back to d6, and I think e4 can be played now. Pawn to c5, knight goes to b5, knight goes to b5. Should we play e4 now first before capturing the f5 pawn? But that's fine. Bishop takes f5, bishop takes f5, queen takes f5, and I think knight d5 is possible now. Knight, okay. So queen h5, okay. Knight d5 is not possible because g5 is hanging, so queen h5 has to be played to support the g5 pawn. Queen e6 check, king moves, knight to d7, attacking the rook and the knight at the same time. So the thing is that this bishop is a superb bishop, and d5 is a critical move right now for winning. So I think here knight c7 was also playable. This was the position. So knight c7 actually could have been played here, attacking the queen on e6. Where could the queen go? Knight e7, knight c7, knight takes e6 is the threat. So queen e7 is possible. And in that case, this knight can come to d5. If queen e7, then knight c7, knight c7, queen e7, knight d5. Knight d5 is supporting the knight as well as stopping this d5 pawn push, so that this bishop cannot get active. Okay, so knight c7 probably is one of the move that can be played. But knight c7, I think knight takes f6 is also possible. Knight takes f6, and then knight takes queen, knight takes queen. Yep, that won't be in favor of black. So rook e8 was played. Knight takes f6. rook takes e6, knight takes h5, rook takes e3, rook to e1, rook to e8. I think this is law winning actually. The pawn d4 check should have been given here. Pawn d4 check, and for that I think king g8, then knight f6 check. King moves, knight takes e8, and it's winning for white. So pawn d4 check should be played here. King f2 was played, pawn to a6, h6, pawn to d4 check, pawn to d5 check, and this is now again in the same dilemma. If king goes to h7, again knight f6 check is possible. King goes to g7, g8, again knight f6 is possible. So it's difficult to manage right now for both these players. So last 30 seconds remaining, guys. Rook takes, oh, knight f6 check was better, right? Knight f6 and knight takes e8. Yeah, I think that should have been played. So all the viewers out there, just a request to all of you, just subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, like the video, it keeps me motivated. Also share with your friends as much as possible. Every day we are live on this YouTube channel at 9:30 p.m. So don't miss our beautiful commentary with all the openings explained, with all the possibilities explained, also guiding you what you can do and learn chess very quickly. So tournament is over right now. Let's just quickly finish this game and then we can go. This is actually winning for white. So after rook e8, I think white is going to get a extra rook. So let's go back to tournament, guys. This is winning for white. So these are the winners of today's 42nd Khelo Chess India team battle. Prayagraj team, future GMs chess club is a new team right now, and we have candidate master playing this tournament who has scored 24 points. Mr. Garv, congratulations to Garv and Prayagraj Future GMs Chess Club. They have scored 93 points to win this tournament. Then we have Richmond College Chess Association from Sri Lanka, and Pasindu is a consistent player with a rating of 2268. We have seen beautiful games from Pasindu. We have learned a lot from his games. You can see our previous recordings. So thanks to Pasindu and RCCA to give us a very good games. They have scored 81 points and they're on second place. Congratulations to RCCA team as well. Then we have Team Future sneaking past Khelo Chess India very quickly on third place, playing in the last few slog overs. Dhanu from Team Future has scored 25 points and has helped Team Future reach a very good score of 75, finishing on the third place for today. Then we have Khelo Chess India, my team. Nikhil from my team, his rating is also around 2200, has scored 20 points today and helped team to secure the fourth place with 65 points. Chess Blasters is on fifth. Kagua Master is again a very good player from Chess Blasters. Congratulations to Kagua Master for leading from his team. And they have scored 65 points again, tying up with Khelo Chess India. But I think there is some buck holes or some system in the background which will decide who is on which place. Then we have Jamshedpur Team A. Sanjoy Koo from Jamshedpur Team A has scored 17 points with 47 points as a team score on number 6. Then we have Rays Rishi Singh, congratulations to lead your team with 16 points. We have finished on 41. Golden Castle Chess Club is on 40 points. Vega 1996 is on 18 points. And then we have Kolkata Dragons on 35 points. Arjun the Great again scoring from the Kolkata Dragons. Arjun, just a request to get one more player from in your team. Okay, so that's all, guys, from today's live broadcast. Hope you all liked the video. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share with your friends as much as possible. Also, you can check a lot of our videos which will help you to improve your chess very quickly using different technologies on your mobile, on your laptop, on your PC, etc. So that's all from my end, guys. Bye bye. Take care and have a very good night. We will meet tomorrow again at 9:30 p.m. sharp for this 43rd Kilo Chess India team.